Yeah, I mean, there's basically he has an operating method that he's developed that I would say is very unusual by modern standards. I'm not aware of another current CEO who operates the way that he does, and I think probably the single biggest kind of question in all of business right now is why don't more CEOs operate the way that he does? And it's a complicated question we could talk about. But
In this clip, Mark Andreesen describes how Elon Musk has an operating method that is very unusual by modern standards, and Eason goes on to compare him to business magnates such as Henry Ford and Dale Carnegie. The single biggest question in all of business right now, he says, is why don't more CEOs operate like Elon Musk does? He shared that someone used to work in one of the other aerospace defense companies and went to work at SpaceX and remarked what it was like. He said it was like being dropped into a shocking zone of competence.
Who doesn't want tax money to be spent efficiently? Who doesn't want to get results? Who doesn't want to eliminate waste and fraud? These are kind of these are those are hard things to argue against. In terms of methods, the big change here is that we've never, in the past, these have been government officials trying to figure this out, or commissions or whatever.
Some may say the blind leading the blind.
Some may say participants in the system attempting to reform the system from within, let's say. And this, of course, what's starkly different here is to have people of the caliber of Elon and Vivek, who are tremendously accomplished entrepreneurs and founders and people who run businesses and people who understand how to do things that and Elon. Vivek's obviously very smart on all this, but Elon is legendary for being able to think, as he says, think from first principles on things like costs. And if you read the books about him, he's always focused on that. And so he's going to bring a toolkit that has been, very successfully deployed at some of the world's leading, literally some of the world's leading companies like Tesla and SpaceX. And he's going to bring that to the government for the first time.
How is Elon so productive? Have you ever deconstructed this?
So actually, I've known Elon for a long time. I didn't work with him for a very long time. Just we were working on different things. But I've been working with him quite closely for the last couple of years, starting with the X acquisition, and then we've also invested in XAI and in SpaceX. And so we now work on three companies together to different degrees, and now the government stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's basically he has an operating method that he's developed that I would say is very unusual by modern standards. I'm not aware of another current CEO who operates the way that he does, and I think probably the single biggest kind of question in all of business right now is why don't more CEOs operate the way that he does? And it's a complicated question we could talk about. But if you go back in history, you find characters more like him. And so especially like the industrialists of the late 1800s, early 1900s, people like Henry Ford or Andrew Carnegie or Thomas Watson, who built IBM. If you go back and read the biographies of people like that, Andrew Mellon, those guys, Cornelius Vanderbilt, like those guys ran very similar to the way that Elon runs things. And it's just this the top line thing is just this incredible devotion from the leader of the company to fully, deeply understand what the company does and to be, completely knowledgeable about every aspect of it and to be in the trenches and talking directly to the people who do the work, deeply understanding the issues and, being the lead problem solver in the organization. And basically what Elon does is he shows up every week at each of his companies. He identifies the biggest problem that the company's having that week and he fixes it. Right. And then he does that every week for 52 weeks in a row. And then each of his companies has solved the 52 biggest problems that year, like in that year. And, most other large companies are still having the planning meeting for the pre-planning meeting, for the board meeting, for the presentation, for with the compliance review and the legal review. And he's just like, it's this level of both like incredible intellectual capability coupled with incredible force of personality, moral authority, execution capability, focus on fundamentals. That is just like really amazing to watch. And then, by the way, the side effect of it is he attracts many of the best people in the world to work with him. Because if you work with Elon, like the expectations are through the roof in terms of your level of performance, and he is going to know who you are, and he is going to know what you've done, and he's going to know what you've done this week, and he's going to know if you're underperforming, and he may fire you in the meeting if you're not carrying your weight. But if you are as committed to the company as he is and working hard and capable, many people who have worked for him say that they had the best experience of their lives when they were working for him. And so then there's this attraction thing, and that's why I think his company's compound the way they do is because of this, they just keep bringing.
They're a black hole that sucks in the best talent. If you're the best in the world, you want to work harder than anybody else, come here.
That's right. And people look at this from the outside and they're like, how can people tolerate, all the criticisms, how can they tolerate this guy and da, 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 da. And inside the company, people are like, finally, I get to work
Someone
for
gets
somebody
it.
who's,
Yeah.
somebody gets it. Somebody, there's a famous line. Somebody used to work in one of the other aerospace companies and went to work at SpaceX and said, he was asked what it was like. And he said, it's like being dropped into a shocking zone of competence. Right. It's exactly your point. Like everybody around me is like so absolutely competent. And look, most of us never have that experience. Most people are never in an organization where like the bar is held that high. And as a consequence, the competence level is so high and stays so high and even rises over time. And again, to his massive credit, he has been able to do that repeatedly.